Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Tess, if you don't know me already. I'm a licensed esthetician here on YouTube and I own an all-virtual corrective skincare practice. I will link it below for all of your skincare needs. But in today's video, I wanted to talk about some things I wish I understood as a newer estie, or just things that I think are important on the whole to understand about aesthetics. I know how it is when you're in school and you're just so curious about what it's gonna be like and what happens beyond aesthetics. So I wanted to make a video that's informative and just helps to provide a little bit of peace and clarity about what goes on after you graduate. So I really hope you guys enjoy this video. Don't forget to follow me on social media. I'm at my estie Tessa on Instagram, at my estie Tessa on TikTok. I have a podcast called The Treatment Room. Hope you guys subscribe to that, and don't forget to subscribe to me here on YouTube. Okay, now that that's all out of the way, let's hop into the video. Tip number one, I know I have said this before, but I think it's really important, and that is your first job, or even your second or third jobs as an esthetician, may not be your forever place, and that is more than okay. I think we can get discouraged when we're in positions where we're not reaching our full potential, especially if we're looking at other people on social media and comparing ourselves. But I think we need to realize in most other jobs and careers, people pay their dues for a long time. So think of even your first job as just getting your foot in the door and gaining some experience. A lot of people take internships or assistant positions before slowly working their way up the ladder, and it's the same thing in aesthetics. As you get more experience and more years on your resume, you're gonna have better options for jobs, and you're gonna get closer and closer to doing exactly what you want to do. So I just don't want anyone to get discouraged if they're in a job and they don't love it. I would encourage you to get out of that position if you can't stand it, if it's not making you happy. Don't let one bad experience or your first or second experiences in aesthetics completely taint how you feel about the industry. And I don't mean to be pessimistic, I just want to be realistic, especially for those who are recently entering the workforce. We have just gone through a huge pandemic, economic crisis, so be gentle on yourself and just understand that things will likely get better. Tip number two. Although I think being an esthetician is the best job ever, I would never choose anything else. And I say that having a lot of years of experience working in different jobs. I have worked since I was in high school. I've had probably over 20 jobs, like a lot of different career experiences. And I think being an esthetician is by far the best one. It's so much fun. We can have so much autonomy, creativity, and the sky is truly the limit, especially when you are an independent esthetician. But all of this said, I think oftentimes we can have the perspective as newer esties or esties still in school that it's a glamorous job, and we can be a little bit naive about it. Anybody who's been in the industry for a little minute will tell you it's not always glamorous. There are going to be times where you're picking hair off the floor, you are holding dirty towels, you are extracting people's pimples, and you may have to deal with some Karens and some Lindas, and that is part of being in a service industry. I think because skin is so personal, it can be so tied to our emotions and how we feel about ourselves, that people have a real expectation, especially if they are spending significant money and time on treatments. People, especially these days, expect results. If they're not finding it from you, they may go elsewhere. So I think it's just important to clarify, because a lot of us get into aesthetics because we love skincare and we love making people feel good about ourselves. Like, first day of SD school, if we're going around the room asking why people are in the business, those are probably going to be the main answers. I don't think as many people will say, I want to provide corrective skincare, and it takes a little bit to understand what that fully entails and to understand how to provide that. So you may have some experiences along the way that are less than ideal, and that is okay. Please remember, you just can't be everything to everyone. And that's really hard as a new estie because your intentions are so pure, and that's really hard as a new estie because your intentions are so pure. You just literally are there because you're wanting to make people feel good and feel good about themselves. But I say this because I do not want anyone getting discouraged or feeling down on themselves when they have a real encounter or an issue with customer service. And it is just inevitable to have at least one or a couple experiences where somebody is not completely fully happy. You have some people who will never be fully happy. That's not always a reflection of you. I had so many experiences with customer complaints in the beginning because I was working at a facility that had a really high standard of care. I was a brand new esthetician working alongside people who had been there 5 to 10 years, like had been doing it for a long time. So I was taking on their existing clientele, people who had been in their really experienced hands, and I definitely got discouraged. And those memories just get like so ingrained in you. If I could go back and tell myself one thing, it would be to brush it off and brush it off quick. Take what you can from the situation and learn from it. Do not take it personally. I am such a sensitive little pansy. Like, I'm such a wimp. I really want to be liked, and that's just part of my personality. I want to be liked. I want to make people feel good and happy. I want them to leave my treatment room feeling like they're on cloud nine. And unfortunately, that's just not realistic with every person who comes in off of the street. I wasted so much time feeling down about myself, feeling bad, thinking I was a bad esthetician or I was in the wrong career path. And I was just new and I couldn't be everything to everyone. It's just not gonna happen. But we do our best. We learn what we can from the situation. Take it, apply it, don't be defensive, just learn from it, you know, and try to move on. If you hold on to those negative feelings, it's going to impact the relationships you have with the next people who walk in the door. And unfortunately, in this business, there's not a lot of time to sit there and feel bad about yourself because one person screaming in the lobby had a horrible experience. They leave and the next client is coming in 5 to 10 minutes. You kind of got to just roll with the punches and just go into it knowing that those experiences will probably inevitably happen, and it is so okay. All of us esties started somewhere. Even the best, coolest, most popular estheticians you see on Instagram had those experiences, and we all learn from it. So don't take it personal. Do not stay hung up on it. If you get some feedback or criticism, take it and move on and try to just be better from it. Tip number 3. Okay, I know when I was in SD school, I thought of my career a certain way. I thought of it as when I graduate, when I get my license, when I get my first job, I will be at this kind of like final destination, or I will be this like perfect finished esthetician that I'm striving to be. Spoiler alert, there is no final destination, final end point of being an esthetician. I do distinctly remember this really beautiful feeling I had when it was about 1.5 years into aesthetics and working at my second job. I just remember exactly the treatment, exactly the client, when I just felt at peace with what I was doing. I felt actually happy and I could enjoy what I was doing. I wasn't ruled by my anxiety or worrying about something that was going to go wrong. I was just like in my moment and loving it so much and finally felt sure of myself. But that didn't come for a while, and it's kind of always been like that for me throughout my life. I've never felt like I'm amazing at anything. I've always really had to work super hard, and I envied a lot of people in school that just kind of like had it and they were so great at facials off the bat, and those people definitely exist. But if you're not like that, it's so okay. You can definitely get there. It really just takes practice and repetition. So get your hands on as many faces and clients as you can so you can reach that point of confidence a little bit sooner. I was really timid and I let a lot of things like self-doubt, lack of confidence, anxiety kind of rule me, and I wish I could go back and tell myself it's okay to feel those things. And the sooner you embrace them, the sooner you can kind of be at peace with them. So instead of just, beating yourself up in your head and thinking, I'm so anxious, I'm so nervous, I'm awkward, just let yourself feel those things. Try to just ground yourself in your room, in the moment, like feel your feet on the ground. Feel that present moment and exactly what you're doing, and I think those nervous feelings will actually pass sooner. But I say this because I hope everybody understands, as much as there's a point where you feel confident, there is no final destination in aesthetics. There's no point where you know everything. Even now, I feel like I know a lot, and I'm confident really with whoever comes through my clinic. I'm confident with treating them, but there's always so much more to learn. It's kind of crazy how complex skin and this industry is. I could go on Dermascope or Renee Rouleau's blog or any number of aesthetic sites or resources and learn something new, and we should all stay curious, because that's really the beautiful thing about aesthetics. But stop psyching yourself out or waiting on the day that you are this perfect, polished, finished esthetician, because that day will never come. There's always going to be something that comes up that stumps you a little bit, and there's always going to be more ways to educate yourself on that and pursue an understanding. And that is really what is exciting about this industry. It is ever growing. There's always going to be new products, ingredients, treatments. So just stay curious and excited and don't get too ahead of yourself. Tip number 4, you are not in a rush. This is a tip I learned from Joelle Lee. She is, to this date, one of my favorite resources, but she said this to me once. Maybe it was in a class or maybe it was on her podcast. She's been on the treatment room, but it always stuck with me, and that is, you are not in a rush. I think because of the fast nature of life these days, because of social media, everything feels like it needs to be instant, and it really doesn't. It goes back to what I was saying about people who take their time when they're getting into a career they want to be in for a while. They're playing the long game. They might have an internship, they might have an assistant job or a couple jobs where they learn from different bosses. They take some L's, you take some W's, but you learn so much working in different businesses. And this is one of the reasons I really encourage people to get some job experience before going out on your own. I admire that so much if you want to start a solo business, but I would argue most estheticians are not prepared to start a business out of estie school. It's a big deal. Starting a business, you could be putting a lot on the line financially, emotionally, as far as your reputation. I don't want to see anyone get hurt or invest in a suite, invest in all their supplies, and they find out a couple months in they actually don't like giving treatments that much, or they don't like dealing with complaints, customer service, the business side of things, and I've seen it happen. So I say this because I just want everyone to take their time. I think even 1 to 2 years working for somebody else can teach you a lot. And sometimes it does take finding the right boss and somebody who's willing to invest their time with you and coach you a little bit. I know I'm a little bit biased, but speaking from my personal experience, I would have had no idea of the quality of care I should be providing had I not worked for one of the bosses I had. The first job I had, I wasn't taught a lot because my boss was not an estie. She was a Cosmo, and she kind of just let me do my thing. So I thought everything I was doing was perfect. I had no idea that sheets should be taught, that your bowl should be cleaned and put away before the client opens their eyes. I didn't know people want a pressure where they can feel your hands. I was so timid in the beginning. I had the most feather light touch that kind of just communicates you're not confident, but I wouldn't have known these different standards for quality of care had I not worked for other people. I got to watch other esties make mistakes. I got to watch clients be unhappy. I got to see how my boss would try to make them happy if something did go wrong. I had definitely awkward experiences or experiences where I didn't meet people's expectation, and in the end, these were all things that prepared me to be a stronger esthetician, and it taught me a lot about problems you can avoid and how to avoid them with clear communication, setting boundaries, having policies. I think there's really a lot more to know about owning a business than you could possibly understand from a few months in estie school. So I don't say that to crush anyone's dreams. I just say that as your protective big sister, and you guys know yourselves better than I do. But again, I just don't want anyone to get hurt, and it can be a tough business. So I just want to make sure people are going into things with as realistic of a perspective as they can possibly have when starting a business. And I think when you've spent more time in other businesses, you just understand what you could do a little bit better, what you liked about that business, how you could, do something a little bit different or unique. So I think having an understanding of the market and, what other businesses offer puts you at a big advantage. So don't think of it as you're losing time. You are gaining experience and knowledge to set yourself up for success. This is one of the biggest tips I've ever learned from my dad when you're making a big decision about business or finances or a personal choice, like how you're going to be spending your time every day, what your career is. Do not rush it or try to take the easy way out, because cutting corners really can just end in heartache. So make sure you're going into this business prepared and ready and not naive. So we're not in a rush. My fifth and final tip is that your path can definitely change in this industry, and that is so okay. I've talked about this feeling that is specific to estheticians with a bunch of my friends, and that is this feeling of guilt or shame when we don't feel as passionate as we once did about something, giving facials, a particular service, working a certain job. It is just kind of part of life. Plenty of people change their career paths, their interests, or pursue a different area of the business. I think we can think of quitting as this negative thing sometimes, but if I had not quit, I would still be working for somebody else. I could still be chained to my 9-to-5 desk job, and nothing against working for anyone else or working a desk job, because at one time both of those things made me really, really happy, but there came a point when they just didn't anymore. And you don't owe anyone an explanation. You can explain if you want to. People are probably going to ask, but don't let those questions, why did you change? Why aren't you doing this? Deter you from just acknowledging how you feel. It's so okay to feel those feelings, and it's just crazy to think about how at one point in time I lived every day waking up so anxious, stressed out, attached to my cell phone and my email, and that was my life. I think when we're young, we put these expectations on ourselves that we have to stay at a job a certain number of years, or, you know, we have to stay, or we don't want to quit, or we're afraid the experience was a waste if we don't stay in it. That's just not the case. You learn something from absolutely every job you have, and it is normal and natural to allow your expectations and your dreams to change, and it will probably lead to something better. You can always go back to that old thing, but if you're feeling a certain way, give yourself the room to explore something new. And along with this, do not let anyone's expectations or perceptions of you mold what you want to be doing, and do not think you need to be like everybody else to be successful. You're actually going to be more successful listening to yourself, to your instincts, and doing what makes you happy. Along with this, please, if there's anything you take away from this video, I hope it's this. Do not let anybody else's expectations or opinions of you shape what you are doing. The only person's opinion that matters is yourself, because you go to bed at night with yourself and you have to be at peace with what you're doing every day. You have to be relatively happy with what you're doing every day. People get confused and thrown off when you are doing something that is a little bit different from the herd. That does not mean that you need to be like everybody else. I felt such guilt when COVID hit and I had to leave my job at the spa, and I just started to think about, what if this was extended? What if I didn't go back? What if I worked for myself? I was getting questions at the time from people who wanted help with their skin and their skincare routines, and I was getting requests from estie students. Could I provide more education, more videos, more podcasts? And I just started to think, what if I leaned into these things that I'm great at, education and consulting, and made that my business? And I still get questions all the time. Are you going to go back to facials in the treatment room? And maybe I will. I honestly loved it so much. I still think about it probably every day, and maybe I will. But right now I'm really happy and successful and proud of myself for having a business and following, you know, what feels good to me. So don't let those questions crowd your mind. It's a great thing to be unique, and when you get those questions, just kind of brace yourself and remind yourself you're doing something different, and that takes a lot of guts to stand on your own 2 feet and try something different, especially if there is no set path laid out for you. But as long as you're staying true to yourself, as cheesy as that sounds, that is really the best thing you can do and the best way to be successful. If you think you're going to be successful trying to imitate somebody else's version of success, it's not going to happen. You are so much better off. You're going to be happier and more successful doing what feels good to you in the moment. And just understand that can change at any time, and that's not something to feel shame about. That's something to lean into and be really proud of yourself for. All right, guys, I have talked your ears off. Thank you so much for being here and listening. I love you guys. You are seriously my world. Please leave comments or suggestions for future videos below. And thank you guys for watching. I will talk to you in the next video.